Welcome in. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome in, Stitch by Stitch, New Mexico. Pickle, Pink Petal, Shelly. Welcome in, everybody. Please read the show notes. John Vicky is here. Hey, Queenie. Welcome in. So, read the show notes. And if you're new to me, make sure you take a screenshot of all the starred bullets that are in the show notes. Lots of important links or ways to get to information that is helpful for you as a new seller. What goes around? Good morning. How are you today? All right, today I have a specific topic I want to talk about, but feel free to put any questions that you have in chat with a question mark so they show up bold and I will, answer them as they come. What I wanted to talk about today is listings, listing items. And there's some kind of, I don't know if it's a mixed opinions about listing items, but listings are super important and listing things using the quality listing setting is important, especially if you want um, to ever, get to a point where you possibly go premier, you have to have quality listings. And a quality listing means it has pictures, a description, and if the category requires it, some additional details like the condition of the item. So it is important for you to have listings. You love the thought of this, of what? Stitch by stitch listings. So listings can appear in three different places in your shop. So you have a profile, you have shows, and in your shows, you can have items listed in your auction and you can have items listed in your buy it now. And in addition to those two places, depending on how you set the listing, you can also have items that are listed in your profile marketplace shop available 24/7 outside of shows. And it's important for you to know how to set those depending on where and when you want them to be seen and possibly sold. So, listings, you need to understand how listings work so that you are putting those things in the correct place at the right time and that you're able to retrieve them when you want to use them. When you create a listing, it never permanently goes away unless you delete it. And you can only really delete it on the web version. Because once an item is listed, if you sell it or you don't include it in a show and it's not a listing on your marketplace, it just goes into inactive status. And you can retrieve it by going into your inventory and adding it to a show or updating it and putting it on the marketplace or updating it and putting it in an auction. It just depends on how you change that listing. Welcome in, everybody. We're talking about listings today. Please read the show notes. And if you have questions, ask them in chat with a question mark so that they show up bold. And welcome. I'm Dana. If you're new to me, I have a lot of information I share in the show notes and also in the auction tab. There are listings that are informational listings for you to peruse and take copies of the things that you need. So if you click on the shop button right now, it's so on your screen. If you're on a mobile device on your screen, just click the shop button It will default to the buy it now, switch it to the auction. So here's buy it now, switch to auction. All of those 19 documents are just things for you to read and take screenshots of. And some of them are multiple pages. So, at your leisure, go through those and find information that you need. And also take a screenshot of the show notes that have all those starred bullets in there that are links, or information about where to go to get help and training and other information. So, welcome everybody. So, we're talking about listings today. So, I want everyone's opinion, or not opinion, I want you to tell me how many listings do you have in a typical show, including listings that you put in your auction and listings that you put in your buy it now? So go, everyone tell me about how many listings you have in a typical show that you do. And it's going to be different for everybody because everybody does different things. So Oinkadoink says 50 listings. What goes around says 15. Anyone else have a number that you want to share? 63 from TWS. Every blessing is not selling yet. So she's here learning about how to use whatnot. Everybody give every blessing a follow. Let's go check your profile. Have you been approved to sell, or are you just thinking about it? So Catherine is every blessing. So just thinking about it. Well, welcome. So we just gave you a follow, and hopefully you get information that helps you decide. You're welcome. All right. Anyone else want to share about how many listings they have in a typical show, including listings in your auction and listings in your buy it now? And there's not a set rule of how many you should have. I can tell you that when you're new, you need about 30 listings when you're new to do a basic show that lasts a couple of hours, because you can go through about 30 items in when you're new and then recycle and go back through those same 30 items over the course of a couple of hours to kind of get your feet wet. That's just kind of a rule of thumb of how many you would need to kind of run a first, second show. Do you have to have listings? Well, you have to have at least one to sell anything. You have to have something listed in your auction tab as a way to sell items. You can't have nothing listed, because then you can't sell anything. There's no mechanism for you to sell without at least one listing. And there are some sellers who pretty much have one listing. They just do random pulls. It's a one listing in their auction. Everything's sold at the same starting price or similar starting price under the same weight, and they go and blow. Is that the best way to go? It depends on what you sell, what your strategy is, what kind of things you sell, how quickly you sell, all of those things. Do I feel like that's a good strategy for most categories and sellers? No. It does not allow people to see what you sell. It does not allow people to come and view your auction ahead of time and get a good idea of what you're going to be selling. It does not allow you to have, the pre-bids on anything. It also does not allow you to have additional sales from items that are in your buy it now during the auction. So you're missing out on additional sales if you don't have buy it now options. Most sellers have started adding buy it now options because they've realized they're missing out on a lot of potential sales by not having those. Good morning, Andy. How are you today? Hope you're having a great day. I just modded you if you can stick around. If not, don't worry. All right, so let's talk about, the ways that you can list things and how to determine where they're going to show up. So in your shows, when you go live, you have your auction items and you have your buy it now items, and you have a third category, which is giveaways, if you put some giveaways in. How do you get an item to show up in your auction tab? I personally like to list my items in the show that they are going to be in if I'm creating a new listing. I like to know exactly where I'm putting it and where I'm putting it so that there's no question about where it is when I start that show. How do you do that? Well, when you have a show that you have scheduled, so I'm going to minimize this on my screen. So for example, I have a show today, later today, and I can just open that show. I'm not going to start that show. It's just sitting there ready for when we go live. And I can load items directly in that show if I want to make a new listing. So I already have stuff in the show, but let's say I have something I want to add. So I just click on the shop, and you can see across here we have auction, buy it now, giveaway, sold, offers. So if I want to list something in the auction, I just hit the plus sign that's down here. Now this is mobile device. So we're on a mobile device. So I hit the plus sign, create a quality listing, and then I've got options, category, media, all of that to create the listing, right? So just for fun, let's go ahead and create a listing. So I'm going to put it under the category of, I happened to grab something so that I could show you, and we're going to put it under the category of snacks because that's what it is. So let me scroll down and find food and drink, candy and snacks. So that's my category. And then we have the option to take a picture or upload, or maybe you haven't tried this. You can either upload a picture, take a picture, or scan a barcode. I'm actually going to scan the barcode and see if this comes up. So I grabbed this little package of nuts that my husband had sitting here in the room, and I'm going to scan the barcode on this item to see if I can get it to show up. All right, so it's scanning. So it came up with, oh, this is interesting. So it came up with the right title, but look at the picture. It came up with a blow dryer or a drill or something instead of, that's interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and select it because it's got the right description. And then I'm going to take pictures because obviously that is not the correct picture. So I'm going to take a photo. Here's my nuts. And I'm going to take a couple of pictures. And, obviously you want to do a little better job of taking nice pictures. So I'm going to add those photos. That stock photo that pulled up, if you take additional photos when you take your pictures, that stock photo will go away. If you don't take additional pictures, that stock photo will actually stay there. All right. Then I'm going to look to see. I gave it a title, unsalted whole cashews. You're going to want to add additional details. It wasn't very descriptive. So I'm going to say 8.5 ounces. And you would give it a nicer title than that. And then it gave it some information there. Then you would tell how many you have available. All right. And then pricing, you decide whether this is an auction item, a buy it now item, or a giveaway. I'm going to make this a auction item that I'm going to start for $2. And then you just give it a shipping profile, and then you're going to publish it. And then that thing will now be created as a listing in your auction. So let's go ahead and publish it. Whoops. Oh, sometimes when you do that option to scan, you have to reselect your category. I don't know why it does that. All right, so I just created that. So that's now an auction item available. It did not have us do a condition or anything on that particular type of item. All right. So that item is now in my auction. Let's say instead I decide, you know what, I'd rather have that be a buy it now. So I'm going to just click the three dots, edit the listing, and I'm going to go down to that pricing area. And now instead of auction, I'm going to switch it to a buy it now item. I now have some other options. Let's say I still want a starting price of $2. But in order to get that starting price, I'm actually going to change it to 3 and turn on flash sale and do $1 off. So, it gives it the appeal of it's on sale. And then depending on whether or not I want it to be available for full price, if I'm not running the flash sale, I can turn this on or off. I'm going to keep it off. I'm going to have it be only available when I'm running it on flash sale. And then you can have a max purchase limit if you have a bunch of something and you only want people to be able to buy one or two. Then you just change that, turn that on and put a limit. This button is really important. Reserve for live. What that means is if you have that turned on, this listing that you have created is only available during your live shows. It's not something people can purchase out of your shop on your marketplace profile. It's only reserved for live shows. If you want that bag of nuts to be available 24/7, you would turn that off. And that listing would then be available not only in your buy it now during your live shows, but during 24/7 out of your shop. So you decide when you list it on those options. These will only show up, these options will only show up if it's a buy it now item. Auction items have to be run as an auction. That makes sense. All right, so then I would, finish that, save it. And now we look, it's no longer in the auction tab, it's now in the buy it now as something that they would have to buy on flash sale. Okay. So that's how that works. And I'm actually going to remove that from that show. Everyone understand how that works? Do you have questions about listings and how to use them? And then I want to show you also how to import listings. Oh, you lost? I lost you? Meaning you lost, like you got kicked out of the show or you were confused about what I was sharing. Oh, you lost the page? Well, I have it right here on my dashboard, so I know it's a little bit sideways, but I'm walking on my treadmill while I talk. So, be patient with me as I try to share. Let me see if I can get you a little bit better angle right there. And you can zoom in. So on your screen, if you want to get rid of chat and view something, just swipe to the left like that, and then it removes chat. And you can also go like this to zoom in to look at things. So if you didn't know how that works, just swipe left to remove the chat, and then use your fingers to zoom in on the show to view something closer. All right, so let's talk about adding a listing. So let's say that, well, you saw me create that listing for the cashews, right? And I put it in the show later, and that's for later today. And then I removed it because I decided I don't want that in there actually, right? But let's say I want it in this show. So I'm going to click my shop button. I know it's a buy it now item, so I'm going to navigate to my buy it now, and I'm going to import that listing that I already created. So I'm on my buy it now in this show, this live show. See the little plus button? I'm not going to create a listing, I'm going to import. See, the last option there is to import. So I'm going to click that to import. That listing is no longer active because I removed it from that show. So it's going to be in an inactive listing. So here we have active, draft, and inactive. And there it is right there because it's the last one I created. If you needed to search for it, you would just type, cashew or something in there. All right, so I'm going to click that listing and import it. And you can see it's now in the buy it now in this show. So if all of you will click the shop tab and navigate to buy it now, you'll see those cashews are now a listing available in this show. It's that simple to import a listing. You can do it live, you can do it before your show starts. Okay, that's how you import a listing you already have created. All right. Another way to get listings into your show is to use the inventory in your seller hub and clone through shows. So you go into your seller hub. So let me minimize for a second. So you go into seller hub. This works best on web version. So use your laptop or your PC, but go into seller hub and go into shows, and you can go to past shows, and you can actually clone all your items over from a past show. And again, that works better on the web version. So I don't have a web version here to show you because I'm using mobile devices. That's something I can show. We're actually going to do a live community support show tomorrow evening, and I'll be in front of the computer. So if you want to see that process, I will show the process of how to clone items from a previous show into a new show. But it's Seller Hub, past shows, and then you select the past show, select the show you want to clone the items to, and then select the items from that previous show that you want to clone. All right, let me make sure I'm not missing any questions. How many devices do you need to run a show? You technically only need one, but it's kind of difficult to run a show from the same device that you are streaming from, depending on your setup. Because most people show the table or the items that they're running. And if you only have one device, it's kind of hard to, to be able to see what's going on in the show if you have the device pointed down at the items you're showing. If you go in front of the camera to show your items, it can work. So it just depends on, you know, how you run your shows and if it will work that way. But the other consideration is if you're running your show from the same device you're streaming from, you're always up in the camera because you're having to push things, you're always up here trying to, do things to run your show. And so that's a little bit obnoxious to your viewers to have your face, see your nose hairs, have your finger constantly doing things on the screen. You know what I mean? So, is it doable? Yes. Is it ideal? Not necessarily. So, yeah. All right. All right. A couple of more things about listings. You saw when I added a buy it now listing, you have the option to do flash sales. That to me is one of the more amazing, awesome, wonderful tools that we have as sellers to help us get more sales. So, auctions are awesome, auctions are exciting. People love to um, be in an exciting show where people are running auctions and you get the option to bid, and bidding can get exciting. But a lot of people prefer to just be able to buy something when they want to buy it and not feel pressured and not have to be worried about other people outbidding them. And your buy it now is huge for that. So let's see. She says have, let's see, with 2 different devices minimum to run shows, one for camera, a different device to update listings and pin. Yeah. So it is better, if you can, to have at least 2 devices so that you can run your show from one device and then stream from the device that you're using as your camera. I prefer to run my show from the web version. The web version is much richer with tools and a bigger screen for you to be able to see things. Queenie says, I just wanted to say I've always done my shows with one device, my phone, and that's all I have, and I've never had a problem. Yeah. And some people, it works. It just depends on how you do your shows. So if you are going to use just your phone, you need to be in a position where you can have the phone on where the screen is facing you, but your camera is turned the other way. So the switched view, so that the people are seeing your items on the table, not your face, and you're able to run the show because you see you see the face of your camera and the camera is viewing the items. And then you can run your show that way. But if you sell larger items, let's say you sell clothing, people need to see the item, right? If you're selling beads and jewelry, which is mostly Queenie sells mostly smaller items, so she can do that. But if you sell clothing, they need to see the whole piece of clothing, right? Not just the front buttons. So you can't really get away with that because it would be difficult to show the items accurately enough for people to be comfortable wanting to buy them, right? So it just all depends on what you sell and how it's going to work for you. So, just experiment with what works for you, and try different things, and don't be afraid to, you know, decide this isn't working, and, you know, get a different setup that will work for what you sell. All right. Let's see. I was talking about um let's see, what if you have three devices, one for camera, face, you one for pin things, and a third device so you can see what the public's seeing. That's fine too. I have three devices right now. So I've got my camera here, I've got this iPad, and I've got a second phone that we use as a mod phone because when I'm trying to show things, I need to still be able to read chat and show you things on the iPad. And in our typical shows, I have the camera, I have my laptop. My husband uses two other phones. He uses this one and then his other iPhone that's logged into our show account so that he can run some things on that account as well. So, yeah, we usually have about 4 or 5 devices going at any given show. But you don't have to have that many. You just decide what works for you, what setup helps you run your show most efficiently. I will say that make sure that you understand which device you go live from. So if you are using multiple devices, you go live from the device that you are streaming from. And then the other devices, you just open the show on those other devices, but you don't go live from the other devices. So you go live only from the streaming device. And then other people are using OBS software, and that changes everything. So OBS software allows you to have multiple devices streaming through the software, and then you get to change views and do other fancy things. And you can do things like have, the camera on the table and then a little box with your face talking. You can do all kinds of fancy things. I haven't really experimented with OBS just because it's glitchy, and I feel like the way that I sell doesn't really work for me. So, but a lot of people that sell smaller things but still want to have their face, and be more personal with their customers will use OBS and have the camera on the table with the items and then have a second screen that pops up with their face, with them talking, and it allows the customers to interact more personally with the seller. So, there's lots of different options. And if you want to learn about OBS, just go to help.whatnot.com or frequently asked questions and type in OBS. And it's O as in object, B as in boy, S as in Sam. And it will bring up the articles telling you about OBS and how to use it and how to set it up. And there's different OBS software out there. You just have to find one that works for you. Let's see. Faye says, would be nice to run from my phone and see the video live from my iPad. I only see chat from iPad. Yeah, you can see on the iPad, it doesn't show chat. If you can get a second phone, and this phone is actually Android, and this is obviously Apple iPad. I like the view on Android. So we just saved, just get a refurbished phone that you don't even have connected to your cell service. It's just connected to Wi-Fi. So this isn't a phone that we had that's not even connected to a cell service. It's just connected to Wi-Fi. And then we use it as a mod phone, and it's logged into my husband's account. So you can have it logged into a second account or a spouse's account or something like that. And then it allows you to have, the view and so on. Cal Carlos says that second device that's not live streaming, will it let you update your pins in real time, even though that second device is not going live? Yes. So as long as it's logged into the same account as your account that you run the show from, it allows you to do all the same things. So this phone is logged into my husband's account, and he's a moderator. So he can do all the mod stuff from this phone that he can't, do the stuff that you can do on the other. But we have another phone we use that is logged in, and he can run stuff from that phone. So, you can have as many devices as you need logged in. I will say that it might, depending on what your internet service is, it could possibly affect your streaming speed if you have too many devices, if you don't have a good connection, or a high speed connection with lots of bandwidth. That is a possibility. So be careful with that. All right. Let's see, what else was I going to talk about with listings? I want to talk about why listings are important for new sellers, especially. So, like I was saying, there are a lot of sellers who just do random pulls. And when you go into their show, they have one listing in their auction, and they sell everything they sell from that one listing in the auction. If you're new and you're trying to build and establish a customer base, you really need to have listings that are more than just that one listing, so that people can see what you're going to be selling and what you have. And it will help you get people coming into your shows because they see the items that you're going to run. And they can also pre-bid on those items. And that can be important for a new seller, because a pre-bid, as long as you run that item, is a guaranteed sale. If you have nothing listed, people can't really see what you're going to be running. So as a new seller, having good listings in your shows will really help you start building an audience, because they can see in advance what you're going to have and get excited about it and want to come in and see those items. So, when you're more established, you have a huge audience coming, everybody already kind of knows the items that you run. Little less important, but in my opinion, still important to have listings still, at least in your buy it now and in your shop, so people have an idea what kind of stuff you run, because how are you going to attract new customers? The old customers already know that you have great shows and great stuff, but new people coming on don't know that. And so it's important that you still have stuff for people to see, because you always need new customers, because your long-term customers are awesome, but at some point, people have to slow down the buying, because not everybody has the room or the income to continually buy and buy and buy, unless they're buying from you to resell, which is possible. But still, you always want an influx of new customers. And one of the ways to attract new customers is to have things listed so that people can see what you're going to have. I actually get really bugged if I go to someone's profile and see their shows and I want to learn more about them and what they sell, and they have nothing. I honestly am just like, well, guess I don't, you know, not going to come to their shows. They have nothing. They have no items listed in their shop. They have shows scheduled, but you open the show and there's nothing there. And sometimes they don't even have a single listing until right before they go live, and then they're just selling right out of that one listing. And so you really never know what they're going to have. And I'm honestly kind of bugged by that. And I don't typically go to shows like that because I want to know that I'm going to, it's not going to be a waste of my time, if that makes sense. So I think listings are really important to help you build your customer base, build trust, build people can see what you're going to have and know that that you have things they want to spend time with and that you would enjoy. So I think that's important. Any opinions about that? Any experiences that have told you that that is true? How many of you feel like when you took the time to pre-list and have things ready to go, did you feel like that was a better show for you versus, just a show where you ran everything from a generic listing or a couple of generic listings? What's your opinion on that? My opinion is that shows where you have listings are much smoother because everything's ready, pre-listed. You can just pull from those listings, run the items that you have. You don't have to, scramble to figure out what you're going to run. So I think it's much more organized. People see what you have, they can pre-bid, they can request items. And then, of course, your buy it now is hugely valuable because people can either go in and buy those items or you can flash sale those items and, get a lot of extra sales that way. Every Blessing says, as a buyer, I'm looking for very specific fabrics. So listings keep me from wasting my time watching random shows. Exactly. And I think there's a lot of people that way that are looking for specific types of items or very specific items. And so they kind of want to know in advance if they want to spend time in that show if you don't have anything like that. So, you know, there's a different mentality about that. Now, you do have to recognize that the platform is kind of geared towards live shows versus listings that specifically people, just find and buy. It's geared more for live shows. It is a platform that allows you to have a sell through rate that is amazing. So you can go live and just grab and sell, grab and sell, grab and sell, grab and sell, and never have to pre-list anything if you want to do that method of selling, and it still be very, very successful. But for long-term growth, listings are important and will help increase your sales if you can take the time to pre-list auction items and have items for sale in your buy it now. Sellers who do not utilize their buy it now are leaving a lot of money behind in every single show because you have customers who aren't necessarily interested in what you're auctioning, but they may be interested in the pre-listed items that are available in your buy it now. So you're leaving stuff behind if you don't have those. And yes, Faye is bringing up a really important point. The items that are in your buy it now, people can pin those items. And then when you go live, they get notified. And if you don't have items like that regularly, you miss out on other people, a lot of your followers getting notified when you go live if they didn't bookmark the show. But if they did, maybe they didn't bookmark your show, but they did have an item that was in your buy it now that you regularly keep in there that they pinned, they will still get notified of that show. So if you look in my buy it now, right now, I have 44 items. And if you look, see that little bell number? Every single item I have in there has a bell on it and a number because someone has previously looked at that listing and pinned it. And when I go live, all those people, all that adds up, and people get notified that I'm going live with that item that they pinned. So, yeah. So have some consistent items that you always have. Technically, per terms of service, you're not supposed to have an item that says, pin this item to get notified when I go live. It is supposed to be something for sale, but have something that you have always, that you always keep in stock. So my item that I have several, but one of them is this Barbie sticker. It's for sale, but it also says mark to be notified, buy for Barbie stickers. And it's a $1 item, and people can mark it if they want to. Okay? Do you as a seller have to pin it on your live for it to notify, or just when you go live, it already lets them know? It already lets them know if they already had pinned that item previously. And it's an item that you continue to add into your show every show. So if it was it's the same item, and you just add, as it sells out, add more units. But you have to have something they can actually buy. So, have it be something, stickers or something little that they can actually buy, but also gets marked. So one of my listings is this one, and this one has the most, I think that's the one with the most um, pins. So I sell fabric. So I have a listing that is a random mystery fat quarter of quilting cotton. And it's just in all my quilting cotton shows and in most of my other shows too, since that's what I sell. And see how it gets marked. I am noticing I only have 4 available, so I'm going to edit that listing really quick and add more units so that doesn't run out. Because I sell that pretty regularly, not like tons and tons, but regularly enough that I'm going to want to have, a decent amount of units in there. Not so many that I don't have enough to fulfill it if someone actually went in and bought all of them, but enough so that it can continue to be sold. So I just updated that from 4 to 25. All right. Any questions about that? Let's see. I see a lot of sellers just pin the item on the screen so that they don't have to keep making new listing titles. Let's see. So as it sells, so that's automated. So if you have just one listing that you sell from, every time you sell it, Whatnot automatically puts the item number on it. So the first time they sell it in that show, it's item 1, item 2 is the next one, 3, so on. And you can actually use those numbers on the back end when you ship, because you can just go into the orders and see that Sally got that listing item number 3, Mary got 4, Johnny got 5, etc. So that's how they're using it. And that's the option where you're selling most of your items out of a single listing or a couple of listings. So if you use a numbering system, then, Whatnot puts that on there, whether you want to use it or not, because it just shows that out of listing A, the first item sold gets item number one, the second item sold gets item number two, and so on. That's how it works. Is there any way to unpin an item in somebody's show that you're not interested in any longer? Yeah, you would just go into their buy it now, and I'm pretty sure you can just open that up and see how there's a little bookmark thing. Just tap it and it will unpin that item. So you just open the listing and then see how I can tap to save. I can tap to again to unsave. Can you see my screen? Oh, maybe I didn't show it good enough. So on that listing that I opened up, those taco socks, I can tap the little bookmark to save it. See how it changed to from 6 to 7. I untap it to unsave it. So yes, you can do that. All right. I love that feature about saved items in bin because if they have their notifications turned off from followers, they are still notified when I go live. Yes. So yeah, it is important to have those items in your Buy It Now that people can bookmark. Does it save time instead of having to create quality picture listing for each item? That's why they just run um, the numbering system for live bids. Yes, because the fact that, that's one of the beautiful things about Whatnot is if you want to just go live and sell and not have anything pre-listed, you can, because it's a live auction and you can just randomly grab something and sell it. You don't have to have it pre-listed. But that's what I'm saying is I prefer a mix of both. I think it's important for you to be able to attract and have trust, have people trust you. It's important to show what you're going to sell, have some pricing already in there so that people can kind of have an idea of what you sell and all of that good stuff. But then you can also just do, the seller can also just do random pulls in addition to the things that they had pre-listed. I do a mix of both in all my shows. So I have a lot of things pre-listed, but then I also do, stacks of random items because it would be very difficult. I sell, anywhere from 150 to 300 items in any given show. It would be hard to pre-list 300 items. That would just take way too much time. But can I have, a good 40, 50 items pre-listed, especially if they're items that I renew regularly or I have that item regularly. Like when I sell fabric off of a bolt, a typical brand new bolt's going to have 10 to 15 yards on it. And if I sell it by half yards, that's 20 to 30 of that bolt that I'm going to be able to sell. And I can have that bolt listed and then continue to sell off of that bolt in multiple shows until it's gone. So it's to my benefit to have it pre-listed, especially like I can't remember who mentioned it earlier. They're looking for specific items. It's nice for them to know, oh, she has that fabric in that show. I want to be there. Does that make sense? So it's advantageous for you to have some things pre-listed and then also do random pulls and run items, because that allows you to sell a lot more that you didn't have to pre-list, but the pre-listings help bring people into your shows for the items that you're going to list. So be careful and choosy about what you pre-list. Pre-list items that you know are going to attract customers. What is your opinion on people who have 200 or more items listed in their buy it now? Personally speaking, I'm not going to take the time to look at that many. Yeah, I think that's too much. I would say, 20 to 60 items is probably about the max you should have. Because I'm with you. I'm not going to scroll and scroll and scroll. But do tell people how to search in your buy it now. Hey, Gabriel, thank you for stopping in. Peace to you as well. All right, so yeah. Like right now in my buy it now, I have 44 items. That's, you know, not terrible. It gives you a good selection of items. Most of these in these shows, I have stuff in these shows just for you guys to be able to see how things work. If someone wants to buy something, per terms of service, you're supposed to always have items for sale, even if you're doing a community support show like this. So I always have items in there. Yeah, let me catch your question. Hang on. Let's see. Let's see. I'm not seeing it. TW. Let me check over here. You may have to restate it because I'm not seeing a question from you in here. But let me check and make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, I don't see any under questions. So if you want me to answer it, I have to see it as a question, you need to put a question mark on it. So let me just scroll back through and see um, if it was posted without a question mark. Sorry about that. Try not to miss, but I get yakking and then I miss things. But that's why it helps if you'll put a question mark on it. Let's see. I'm very new to selling and buying. The three dots by the buy it now. I buy it, I know. Buy it now. I am planning to use that to sell my items. Is that the easiest way to run a show? Three dots by the buy it now. Planning to use that to sell my items. Is that the easiest way to run a show? So TWS, here's my advice. So I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but in the show notes, there are starred bullets. And let's see, the third starred bullet in the show notes is Seller Academy. It's the address to go to Seller Academy. So you just go into a browser and type selleracademy.whatnot.com. And it literally just walks you through step by step all the very basic things that you need to learn, how to schedule a show, how to run a show, how to list items, how to run an auction, how to all the very basic things. So I would recommend that you go through all the tutorials on Seller Academy. So it's the third starred bullet in my show notes. You just go to your browser and type in selleracademy.whatnot.com and go through all of those. That will help you more than anything I can say in today's show. And then come back after you've done that if you have more detailed questions. You're so welcome. And sorry, I missed your comment. All right. So let me just make sure I didn't miss other questions. Can I edit show notes before a show? Yes. So to edit your show notes, let me just show you on here. So you tap the show notes and then you tap and hold to of course it's not doing it when I do that. Tap and hold and it will open them up for you to modify. See how it opened up and I can scroll through there. Then you can just add to it or update something. And then see you push the update button to update it. So yeah, and you can even do that live during the show if you need to edit your show notes. And I honestly, a lot of people don't have show notes. I utilize my show notes. I think it's important to have show notes so people know a little bit about how you're running your show, what you're selling. Do you have reduced shipping? Blah, blah, blah. All those things people aren't going to have to ask in chat if you've got show notes. They can just open those and get all that information. Or if they ask, you can say, oh, read the show notes. Okay. Show notes are very, very helpful in helping you run your shows more smoothly. Bayou Sister says, I struggle with running items from the iPad versus the iPhone. Am I overlooking something? Let's see. You may have an older version of the software on the iPad. And iPads, yeah, I don't like really running shows from iPads. I'm kind of with you. I I feel like the iPad version is kind of clunky. So I prefer the web version. I use my laptop to run the show because you have a much bigger screen, you have a lot more tools available, you have a lot more options for seeing pre-bids and for running items. So, if you can swing it, maybe get a laptop to run your shows from instead of the iPad. But if you have a brand new iPad and it's up to date and everything, it can work. Um, but yeah, an older iPad may struggle. And like this one is pretty old that I'm using, but I don't use it to run shows. So I just use it in this show so I have something that I can read from and show you things. All right, let me check and see if I missed anything else. Um, let's see. Items in bin that were saved and sell out. Do the bookmarks stay when you renew the listing? Yes. So if you renew a listing that previously was sold, but it's something that you've added more units, to my knowledge, the bookmarks stay there. Yes. Let's see. Does it save time instead of having to create quality picture listing for each item? That's why, oh yeah, well, we talked about that. Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, looks like I've gotten all of those that are in bold. So yeah, if I missed any questions, restate them. But it looks like I got everything that's in bold anyway. All right, so yeah, tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, if you look at my schedule, I have this show scheduled, Community Seller Help and Chat. And in that show, we'll be in front of the camera. And Bert will be there with me, and he's a lot of fun. And I'll be able to show you things on screen. And I haven't really decided. This one, we don't have a specific topic for. Is there a specific topic that you guys would love to talk about or have me show you things? We already did shipping this month, so I'd rather not do shipping, but I can do some things and go through some things. I'm doing that Philly box raid train as well. Fill a box raid train. Do you have some good ideas or input maybe for me on that? Yeah, so you need to make sure you have your shipping settings set correctly for that show. If you want to offer reduced shipping, you can, but if people buy more than one box, you're going to pay the shipping for any additional boxes they buy. I don't do that. So I tell people up front, if you buy more than one box, you pay $9.21 per box. I put that in my show notes, and I have my shipping set up to buyer pays all instead of buyer pays max. And then my listing is a custom profile shipping listing that is the size of box I'm selling, and they pay shipping per box. So make sure you get that set up correctly. That's something I could walk through tomorrow. But I did do custom, I specifically did a show that looked like this cover earlier this month where we talked about custom shipping profiles. So if you go to my YouTube, which is in the show notes, and go find that show that was called Don't Sink Your Shipping, that was just like a few weeks ago. I showed you how to set up custom shipping profiles. Let me show you what I have. I already have that show scheduled, and I already put one of my listings in there just to remind me, and I already changed the shipping setting. So let's see. It's this show right here, the Philobox D-Stash Raid Train. It's on the 16th. If you open that show and look, I've put in a large flat rate priority box. That's the listing I put in there. And so I'll show you, I just used the picture of the box as my listing. And I edit this listing, and I'm going to show you what I have for my shipping on that listing. So here is that listing, and the shipping profile. See that shipping profile? RSS large. That's my custom shipping profile that I use for a large flat rate box. So let's go look at that listing. So I'm going to go into my seller hub, and I'm going to go down to shipping settings, and I'm going to go to shipping profiles, and I'm going to find that RSS large right here. So here it is. This is my RSS large custom profile. So that's the name of it. It weighs 4 pounds. Why does it weigh 4 pounds? I'm doing flat rate boxes. I wanted it 4 because I don't want it to be over 5 pounds. Even though they may weigh more than 5 pounds, I'm using flat rate so the weight doesn't matter because it can fit up to 70 pounds for the same price. So I have it at 4. And then for bundling, I have it set for 1 per box. 1 per box. So once they buy one of those boxes, it won't bundle any additional boxes they buy with that box. It will, so if they come into your show and buy 5 boxes, they will actually have 5 separate orders. Okay. I have an embroidery machine for sale. How do I list that 2 boxes goes with that listing? Why would it be 2 boxes? Because you're going to put the machine in one and box and the accessories in the other, or is that what you mean? Oh, okay. So then you're going to have to actually, let me think about that one. You're actually going to have to, depending on how you set it up, probably sell the item as one listing and then you're going to have to unbundle and use one of your adjustments. So if someone buys that embroidery machine, you're going to use one of your adjustments to send them the accessories separately. Um, if I mean, do you know ahead of time that it absolutely won't fit in a box altogether? Because I kind of don't like the idea of sending them separate. Because what if they get the machine and then the accessories get lost or vice versa? I kind of prefer the idea of sending them all together if you possibly can. Approximately 50 pounds each. Honestly, I don't know that I would sell that machine in a show on Whatnot. I would list it on Marketplace. Heavy, hard to ship, fragile, bulky. They're just not, it's just a pain in the you know what to sell them on here. So you may consider that it's not worth trying to sell it on here because you'll probably get better money and have someone just be able to locally pick it up if you just advertise it on Marketplace. And I'm not telling people not to sell items on Whatnot. It's just that there's certain things that, people don't sell furniture, people don't sell really big items typically just because the shipping is difficult for those types of items. So, I would consider if it's worth the headache that it's going to be, and trying to figure out the shipping and trying to figure out how, because I don't love the idea of sending them the machine and the accessories separate. Because if one of those gets lost, you know, it's like, oh, great, I got a machine, but I don't even have the presser foot to plug in to run it. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Cal Carlos, if you have snacks you want to keep bundled on, as there might be 30 snacks you don't want a new box created. Let's see. Maybe 30. Oh, so yeah, if you have a show where you want to do both, a little bit of both, just use custom shipping profiles. So you could have some other snacks that you will allow to be bundled. It's just that it won't allow it to be bundled with that box full because that was set for one. But then you can have, other items that it will allow it to bundle. So the key with those kind of shows is just making sure people know up front, put it right in the listing and put it in the show notes. If you buy this box full, it will charge separate shipping than anything else you buy because it's a box full. And then make sure your shipping settings are set so that the buyer is paying all the shipping and you're not, screwed because they bought one box full and then you had your shipping settings set for buyer pays max up to, on a reduced shipping rate, and then you're paying all their extra shipping for all the other items they buy. Yes, possibly in the future, Faye, when we were listening to the interview the other day with the CEO, he mentioned that that is that's on their list for this year to possibly get us some other shipping carrier options. So that's possibly coming. So that's exciting. How is shipping done in a store setting? Buy it now. So that's another thing to consider. If you have a show where you're selling boxes full, if you have items in your buy it now, those will not be bundled with those boxes. So make sure people, or maybe don't have a whole lot of things available in your buy it now during that show for that specific reason, because you don't want unhappy customers that didn't realize that they weren't getting bundled shipping. So make it very clear, if you're doing a show like that, that anything addition that you buy is going to ship separately. Those might be able to be bundled, but they won't be bundled with the box full. So yeah, you just have to be careful about how you set it up. All right. Am I up for chatting personally about it? It's my first one. um, yeah, I mean, sure, you can send me a message. But really that's the basics is you just have to set up, you know, your you have to open that specific show and change the shipping settings in that show. Because when you create a show, it defaults the shipping settings to whatever you have set on your main shipping settings. So you have to open that specific show and go into the shipping settings. So you click the little three dots, you know, and so for that show, let me just show you on that show again. So I'm going to open that show, and which I've already done this, but you click the three dots, edit show, and then you just scroll down to your shipping settings that are in the show. I'm in that show. So you then go in and see how I have the shipping costs set to buyer pays all. So that's what you want to do if that's how you want to do it. Okay. And then you need to have those listings set at custom profiles. So message me if you need help, setting that up further, but that's the basics of it. Is opening that show. Where do I find smart bundling feature? Does Whatnot bundle this with their own algorithm? So, yes. So there's no like, I mean, they don't like publish a thing that shows you because honestly, they can't because it's all dependent on. So, like for Ground Advantage, if you look in my auction tab and go to this item, let me pin it. So this is the USPS commercial pricing chart that I just pinned. So if you look on there, it's based on zones. So if someone buys an item in my show that weighs 1 ounce, and 1 ounce doesn't even show up on here, the base rate is for everything up to 4 ounces. And so if they live in zone 1 away from me versus zone 9, see the price difference? So if someone buys something in my show and they live in the same state or region, their price is $4.20 versus the person who lives in zone 9 whose price is $4.85. And it's based on weight for Ground Advantage. Now, once it hits a pound, if you have buyer pays max turned on, then 1 to 5 pounds, it's going to be the same rate, right? But it adds it up based on all those other factors and how you have your shipping settings set. So smart bundling is just based on all of that, and there's not a set thing. And honestly, it's much better than it used to be. It kind of used to be glitchy. Every once in a while, it was doing weird things, like you'd have one customer in your show where it bundled everything and didn't unbundle it when they hit 5 pounds or something, and it made no sense. So I haven't had that happen in a long time though. So, oh, thank you for coming in, Faye. Good to see you. I sell sewing patterns. Is Ground Advantage best? Do people typically buy, more than you can fit in a large flat rate box? Or does that only happen every once in a while? Because honestly, my opinion is if you can, you know, if you look at my information about shipping, if you can offer reduced shipping, you should. And also, if you can offer flat rate on the back end, then it will only charge you the lower amount as the seller. So flat rate on both 1 to 5 pounds and 5 pounds and over is the best shipping setting for both you and the buyer if 85 to 90% of the time you can fit most of what people buy in flat rate boxes. If not, then the best setting is 1 to 5 pounds priority, 5 pounds and over ground advantage, because that's going to give the buyer the best rate, if that makes sense. Okay. So, but on the back end, you can always flip flat rate on. So if you have it set for 1 to 5 pounds priority and it will fit in a flat rate box, then you just turn flat rate on and pick the box. If it needs to go in a bigger box and it's less than 5 pounds, then you just get the box, put in the measurements and the weight. If it goes over 5 pounds, then you are set for ground advantage. But if you have buyer pays max 921 turned on and you have over 5 pounds set for ground advantage, then you run the risk of you as the seller having to pick up some of the cost of that because you had it set for them to only have to pay 921, and ground advantage over 5 is going to be more than $9.21, and you are then either going to have to use an adjustment or pay part of their shipping. Does that make sense? Yeah, so ground advantage is riskier if you're offering reduced shipping. If you're not offering reduced shipping, then it's fine. So, you just decide what works best for you. So if you're offering the buyer pays max 921, then I would have it set for, 1 to 5 pounds flat rate, 5 pounds and over flat rate. Because then you as the seller, the most it's going to charge you is 921. And then if it can't fit in that flat rate box, then you just use one of your adjustments or you pay the little bit extra for the ground advantage. Does that make sense? I saw earlier all your questions were compressed in yellow. Is that a mod feature to compress questions? No. As a seller, you can do that. So see the little arrow? So this is a mobile device. See that little arrow right above chat? You push that and it expands the chat and it brings up this little menu. And then I can tap questions and it sorts it by only questions. So anyone that's running a show can do that. Okay. And it's on the web version, it's one of the features on the sidebar and on so like this is an Android phone, and see how I have that expanded. So it's same thing. You just push the arrow, push questions, and it sorts out just the questions. So yeah. One of the things I always tell people is you can't break the software. So every little 3 dots, every little arrow, every little thing you see on your screen, press it and see what it does. It can't hurt anything to just sit there and figure out what all the little features are to help you learn how to use the software better. Because those are the kind of details, honestly, that they don't necessarily show you every little thing when you go through tutorials and stuff. Um, and you kind of, they're pretty universal, like three dots, press it, it's going to give you a bunch of things, you know. So, like, for example, I just pressed the three dots. Did you know that these are all here? You can create a poll, you can multicast, you can clone items, add coupons. We're live. I can do all these things. You can also do this camera preview while you're live, and it changes the you can do the face cam, and it'll switch your camera to the face cam instead of, so it flips your camera right in the live. So if you have your camera set where you're looking down at items and it's the back camera, you can hit the three dots and change it to the face cam without having to flip your camera, and it just flips the view for you. That makes sense. I don't want to do it here because I have my camera free front face. And then if I flip it, it's going to show you the rest of my room. That makes sense. Okay. So, yeah. How many sales are you comfortable getting in one show? Um, the best answer to that is, you're going to have to, pretty much you can plan on that if you do a 2-hour show, you're going to take probably a couple of hours to prep and ship that show. So if you can only tolerate, having to do 2 hours, probably better keep it to 2 hours. If you can do more than that, so like for example, our show yesterday, um, I didn't look at the total number, but we did almost 4 hours, and it took us, um, I had to do a lot of cutting. And so it probably took us five. Well, did some shipping while I did cutting. So, I mean, total probably it was probably about 4 hours, So you have to decide what works for you on the back end for having to do the shipping. But a general rule of thumb is, if you do an hour show, plan on at least an hour to ship it. And then if you're cutting fabric in addition to that, it might be a little longer. So, you decide what's going to work for you. And maybe it's better to do shorter shows and do more frequently versus longer, less frequent, if that makes sense. If I didn't pack the orders from yesterday, would you have a show today? Um, Probably not, but that we have our set schedule that I think is important to be consistent with. So I try to, if I know that I'm going to need to have extra time, maybe I do, maybe I shorten that show a little bit so that I'm going to have time to pack it so that I'm not totally wasted for the next day's show. Do I do OBS? No. I just haven't really felt like it was that. There's a lot of glitches, and when I go into shows that are using OBS, I actually find them distracting. So I just haven't really felt like the way that the tools work have worked for me enough to feel like it's worth the effort, because you have to have the software all set up. Depending on the OBS system you use, you have to pay for the software. Yeah, I just haven't. I felt like the app itself has enough features that I haven't really wanted to go down that rabbit hole. So I like the caption. Yeah, there's a lot of features on OBS that are amazing. And if you do kind of techie stuff and you have a younger audience and people like, the split screens and the extra features, that, go for it. It definitely can enhance your show, but if it's not, so you just decide. And there's a lot of information just here on Whatnot. Go to help.whatnot.com or frequently asked questions, type in OBS. They pretty much lay it out for you really well. And then there's some sellers who have lots of good tutorials and videos on YouTube to tell you how to set up OBS and how to use it. So, if it's an option that you want to go, to use, go for it. All right. So yeah, I need to get going today. Please bookmark upcoming shows. And tomorrow tomorrow evening, we have this show that's on my schedule. We'll be in front of the camera and I can show you how to do some things. And, we just have fun and chat. We don't have a specific topic tomorrow yet that I've been thinking of. I think I'll just try and do a lot of on-screen stuff so that people can get help with, seeing things done live. What goes around said, why didn't my show have closed captions? Do I need to flip a switch? So they're trying to figure this out because depending on the device that the seller is streaming from and the device that you are watching from, it's supposed to be available for everybody, but it's not always available. So you should be able to click the 3 dots and have it say closed caption sound or closed caption, and you can see on this device it's not giving me that option. So let's see, I can't connect my thermal to my Mac and was told that I had to use OBS. Ooh. So the thermal printer you bought doesn't have a print driver that works with Mac. Because I would think that you would have to contact go to the website for the brand of printer you bought and see if they have a print driver that will work with Mac. But it is through the software too. So when you go to connect your printer, you have to go in and tell it you want to use, 4x6 and make sure the printer's showing up and everything. So maybe look and see, if they go to the website for your printer and see if they have information about Mac and a driver that will work with it. Because maybe it's just as simple as that. Yeah, what goes around says she has a Mac and is not having problems. So it may be the printer that you got doesn't have the correct driver for working with Macintosh. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's a pain. I'll tell you, the other day I went in to look at, I was in my shipping settings when I was in my shipping, and I went to do something to look at some information about to see if I could do a different setting, and it screwed up my printing settings, and it took me a good hour to figure out what I screwed up and then to get it, because it started printing sideways started printing landscape instead of portrait, and I could not get it to work. And I had to actually uninstall my printer, reinstall the driver, and then restart my computer. I was literally like, I can't believe this happened. Here I am trying to get my shipping done. So yeah, be careful about it. The settings in the software, in Whatnot software, are very caveman, honestly. So once you set it up, don't mess with it. If it's working, don't mess with it. So, yeah. Oh, there you go. That's a good idea. Attach to your husband's laptop, which is an Apple. Yeah, try that. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know what people do, honestly. I'm one of those like kind of closet geeks where I know just enough that I can usually figure things out. So I really have empathy for people who are not tech savvy, um, trying to figure things out. I don't know how they live, how they survive anymore these days, because you have to have, and that's why I tell people you really can't break anything. So just try to figure out what things are. Click the buttons, click the dots, click the arrows, see what it does, and you'll figure out things more than just trying to look it up if you just try things. So, be an investigative seller and just start pressing on everything to figure out what's what. Because as long as you don't save any settings on anything, while you're doing it, you're just seeing what this button does, what that button does, what that arrow does. Just try things out so that you can figure out how the software works. And they update things regularly and move things around. And so then you have to refigure out where things are anyway. So just get used to that because it's going to happen again. They'll update something and move something, and then you have to figure out where it's at. So, and you would not believe the amount of changes to the software that have happened in the time that I've been selling. So I've been selling for over 3 years now, and um, the software is basically unrecognizable from what it used to be when I first started selling. So you have to get used to being able to, navigate and figure out where things are when they do updates. All right, I need to get going. Looks like people are waning anyway, and they're like, okay, you're yakking on and on about things that aren't helping me. So let's go see who we can raid. And if you find my shows useful, bookmark upcoming shows. And we're going to go raid into, let's see, who are we going to raid into? I'm doing fabric today. So let's go raid into a fabric show, unless there's a community show that is useful out there. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone I really want to raid into. I love Red Rooster, but she's in Canada and they talk Canadian shipping out the wazoo right now. So it's kind of not as helpful for those of us who are in the US. So let's go raid into Pickle Pie Sews. I've never raided her. She's a newer seller, I think. Let's look. Pickle Pie Sews. Yeah, 541 items sold. So we're going to go raid her, and appreciate you guys being here. Hopefully you found this useful and come back. And let's go right into Pickle Pie. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a marvelous day. Make it a great day.